On my 16th birthday, the rain was pouring in Columbus, Ohio. I'm Riley Sullivan. I stood in the living room holding the tiny cupcake they gave me, thinking maybe this year would be different. My dad opened the front door and looked straight at me. "You're old enough now. Get out. We're done carrying dead weight." Behind him, my stepmom smirked. My 14-year-old half-sister folded her arms and added loud enough for the neighbors to hear, "Leave already. Don't make the house smell worse than it already does." No yelling, no second chance. Just the door slammed in my face and the lock clicking. I walked until my shoes soaked through, slept on park benches, learned which shelters turned teens away after 9. Weeks later, I was behind a Tim Hortons at dawn digging through trash for anything still wrapped when a black SUV pulled up. A man in an expensive coat stepped into the rain without an umbrella. Riley Sullivan. I froze, ready to run. He didn't flinch at the smell or the dirt. "My name is Lawrence Hargrove. Your great-aunt just passed away, and she left everything to you. But there's one condition you have to accept right now. If this story hit you hard, drop a like and share it with someone who needs to hear it. Comment below. Have you ever been betrayed by the people who were supposed to protect you? What happened next still shocks me every single day." Keep watching. I was still soaking wet when I slid into the warm leather seat of the SUV. The heat blasted against my frozen fingers, but it couldn't touch the cold that had already settled inside me. I need to go back, way back to when everything started falling apart. My real mom died in a car wreck on I-270 when I was 5. One second she was singing along to the radio, the next, the truck crossed the line. I still remember the smell of the hospital hallway when Dad walked out holding my hand and told me she wasn't coming home. A year later, he brought Cheryl home. She smiled too wide, hugged me too tight, and moved her stuff in before the funeral flowers even wilted. 9 months after that, Michaela was born screaming, and from that day on, I became the leftover kid in my own house. Cheryl never hit me. She was smarter than that. She just made sure I knew I didn't belong. Different last name on the first day of school, different rules, different everything. Dad changed too. At first it was small. He'd stay up late on the computer after his shift at the used car lot, eyes bloodshot, saying he was just checking scores. Then the overtime stopped coming. Then the credit card bills started piling up on the kitchen counter like junk mail he couldn't throw away. I found out later he was chasing losses on offshore gambling sites, borrowing from one card to pay another, taking cash advances at casino ATMs in West Virginia, because Ohio didn't have them yet. By the time I was 12, the house felt like it was shrinking. Collectors called at dinner. Repossession trucks circled the block. Cheryl started whispering that I was the reason money was tight, because Dad still paid child support for me even though I lived under his roof. Michaela picked it up fast. She'd walk past me in the hallway at school and hiss mistake loud enough for her friends to laugh. Dad lost his job right after I turned 15. The dealership closed and nobody was hiring a 48-year-old salesman with shaky hands and a gambling flag on his credit report. The fights got louder. Cheryl screamed about foreclosure notices. Dad screamed back that he was this close to a big win. I learned to disappear headphones on library until closing anywhere but home. Then came my 16th birthday. Cheryl texted me at school. "Come straight home, we have a surprise party for you." I actually felt something flutter in my chest. Stupid hope. I should have known better than to feel. I walked in, and the living room was dark except for one candle stuck in a single grocery store cupcake. Dad, Cheryl, and Michaela stood in a half circle wearing the same flat expression. No friends, no balloons, just an envelope on the coffee table and a black trash bags already packed with my clothes. Cheryl spoke first, voice sweet, like poison. "We can't keep doing this, Patrick. The bank gave us 30 days. We have to sell the house." Dad wouldn't look at me. "You're 16 now. In Ohio, you're old enough to be on your own." Michaela rolled her eyes. "We even left your toothbrush in the bag." "You're welcome." I stood there holding that stupid cupcake while the candle burned down and dripped wax on my hand. I didn't feel it. I just heard Cheryl say, "Take what you need and go. Don't come back. We're changing the locks tonight." I grabbed the backpack they'd packed, walked out into the rain, and never once looked over my shoulder. I had $23 in birthday cash from my mom's sister, who still sent cards. No phone, no plan. The first night, I slept under the slide at Goodale Park. The second night, a shelter for teens turned me away because I didn't have ID. By the end of the first week, I knew which dumpsters behind which restaurants got emptied, when which churches left the side door open, and how to look smaller so people wouldn't notice me. I learned fast that nobody was coming to save me, and that was the exact moment, weeks deep in survival mode, that the black SUV rolled up and everything changed. Lawrence steered the SUV into the empty parking lot of a little diner off East Main Street and killed the engine. He didn't speak until the waitress brought 2 coffees and left us alone in the corner booth. He slid a leather folder across the table. Inside was a single photograph, an old woman with sharp blue eyes sitting on a porch swing, Cincinnati skyline faint in the background. "This is Beatrice Whitford, your great-aunt on your late mother's side. She passed away 8 days ago at 90. No husband, no children, no close relatives except you." I stared at the picture. I had never heard that name in my life. He kept talking, voice low and calm. "Beatrice built her money the hard way. Started as a welder during the war, bought into a small steel plant outside Cincinnati in the 50s, turned it into Whitford Holdings. When she sold the operating company in 2009, the proceeds plus real estate holdings and investments came to $52 million after taxes. $52 million. The number didn't even feel real. Lawrence tapped the photo. "She rewrote the will 3 years ago. Everything goes to Riley Sullivan, only biological granddaughter of her favorite niece. That's you. But there's a deadline. The will says you must appear in person at the estate in Cincinnati within 72 hours of being notified, or the entire fortune rolls over to a donor-advised fund for homeless youth. No appeals, no extensions." I finally found my voice. Why 72 hours? Because Beatrice believed if you couldn't fight for it when you had nothing, you didn't deserve it when you had everything. He checked his watch. "I officially notified you 41 minutes ago. That leaves roughly 71 hours. The jet is fueled at Rickenbacker. We can be wheels up in 30 minutes. I looked down at my cracked hands, the dirt under my nails, the hoodie that used to be gray. Part of me wanted to say no, to stay angry at the world. But the bigger part, the part that had slept under bridges and eaten out of trash cans, knew this was the only door that had ever opened. I nodded. Lawrence paid the bill and led me out. 20 minutes later, we pulled through a private gate south of Columbus. A gleaming Gulfstream sat on the tarmac, engines already turning. A woman in a navy suit handed me a plastic bag with new sweatpants, a t-shirt, and sneakers my exact sizes. I disappeared into the restroom at the FBO, peeled off weeks of street grime under a real shower, and walked out feeling like someone else. When I stepped onto the plane, the flight attendant closed the door behind me. Lawrence took the seat across the aisle and handed me a thick trust binder. Read the summary on the flight. We land at Lunken Airport. From there, it's a 15-minute drive to the house. The jet climbed fast. Columbus disappeared beneath the clouds, and for the first time in weeks, I wasn't cold. I opened the binder. Page 1 was a letter in Beatrice's own handwriting. "To my great-niece Riley. If you're reading this, you already know what it feels like to be thrown away. I did too. Cincinnati, 1943. 17 years old, pregnant, kicked out with nothing but the clothes on my back. I swore if I ever made it, I'd give one person the same chance I never got. That person is you, but nothing is free. You'll see the rest when you get here. Come quickly. Beatrice." I traced the ink with my finger. The plane banked south over the Ohio River, and the city lights of Cincinnati started to sparkle below. 71 hours. I wasn't going to waste a single minute. The plane touched down at Lunken Airport while the sky over Cincinnati was turning pale pink. A black Mercedes waited on the tarmac. Lawrence didn't waste words. He just opened the rear door and we rolled east along the river. 20 minutes later, the car turned through wrought iron gates and climbed a winding drive lined with ancient oaks. The house appeared like something out of another century. 3 stories of brick and limestone, wide porches, chimneys tall enough to scrape clouds. The Ohio River glittered silver behind it. Inside smelled of lemon oil and old books. A housekeeper in her 60s nodded once and disappeared. Lawrence led me up a sweeping staircase and down a hallway lined with black and white photographs of steelworkers and factory floors. At the end was a heavy oak door. He keyed in a code, pushed it open, and stepped aside. The study was exactly as Beatrice had left it. A hospital bed still sat in the corner, monitors dark. Her desk faced floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the water. On it sat a single silver laptop. Lawrence pressed play. The screen filled with Beatrice Whitford at 90, thin white hair, oxygen tubes in her nose, eyes still blazing blue. She spoke directly to the camera voice, raspy but steady. "Riley, if you're watching this, you made it in time." "Good. That already tells me something about you. I was 17 in 1943 when my father locked the door behind me in Chicago. Pregnant, no money, no high school diploma. I slept in doorways on Wabash Avenue until a 12-year-old newsboy shared half a hot dog and pointed me to a church basement. That act saved my life. I never forgot it. I welded ship plates at Pullman during the war, saved every dime bought into a bankrupt steel mill outside Cincinnati in 1952 with 5 other women nobody would lend money to. We turned it around. By 1980, Whitford Holdings employed 3,000 people, and I was the majority owner. I never married again, never had more children. I didn't need to. Work was my family. 3 years ago, the doctors gave me months. I started looking for the one person left in my bloodline who still had a heart like my niece, your mother, who died too young. I hired investigators. They showed me pictures of a man who gambled away everything and a stepmother who treated you like furniture. Then they showed me you getting straight A's while working the night shift at a gas station, giving your last $5 to a kid whose shoes were held together with duct tape. That was enough. Here's the deal, and there are no negotiations. You get full control of a $52 million trust. Spending principal is locked until you're 25, but income and designated charitable distributions are yours immediately. In the next 5 years, you must personally ensure that at least 80 children and teenagers under 21 who are homeless or about to get permanent housing, education, or trade certification and a real chance. Not just write a check. You have to be in the room when the keys are handed over, when the first report card comes home, when the apprenticeship contract is signed. Lawrence and an independent auditor will verify every single case. If you accept and finish, the entire estate is yours free and clear on your 21st birthday. If you walk away right now, or if you fail to reach 80 verified cases in 5 years, every penny goes to a permanent endowment for homeless youth across Ohio and Kentucky. Your father and his wife get nothing, not 1 cent. That was deliberate. I'm not buying your forgiveness, Riley. I'm giving you the same choice I never had: turn pain into power or let it rot you. Choose. The screen went black. Lawrence closed the laptop. Take your time. The guest room is ready if you want to sleep on it. I didn't need sleep. I didn't need time. I looked out at the river, catching the first real sunlight I'd seen in weeks, and felt something shift inside my chest, something hard and bright. I accept, I said. My voice didn't shake. Lawrence allowed himself the smallest smile. I thought you might. Paperwork is on the desk. Sign where the tabs are. I picked up the pen. It was heavy, real silver. My hand was steady. As the ink dried, Lawrence slid a set of keys across the blotter. Welcome home, Miss Sullivan. The trust activated the moment your signature hit the page. Your first distribution, $5 million for operating expenses, wired at 9 a.m. tomorrow. I closed my fist around the keys until the metal bit into my skin. 80 kids. 5 years. I already knew exactly where I was going to find the first one. 5 years had turned the scared, filthy 16-year-old into someone I barely recognized in the mirror at 21. Beatrice's home now occupied a renovated 4-story brick warehouse on East 8th Street in downtown Cincinnati, less than 10 minutes from the River Mansion that had become both headquarters and my actual home. We ran 3 group homes in Hamilton County, 2 in northern Kentucky, and transitional apartments scattered across the city. Every kid who walked through our doors got a bed the same day, a caseworker the next morning, and a plan before the week was out. Levi Ortiz ran point on everything operational. I'd found him 15, curled up under the Brent Spence Bridge with a broken arm and a backpack full of stolen library books. He was the first name on the list the day I signed the papers. Now 20 tall and steady, he wore a Beatrice's home polo like it was armor and could talk judges, landlords, and scared 14-year-olds into the same room without raising his voice. He was the brother I never had, and the best decision I ever made. We stood at 79 verified cases, one more, and the entire 52 million unlocked forever. One more and the work could grow beyond anything I'd imagined. That afternoon, I was in the 3rd-floor conference room reviewing scholarship files when my assistant buzzed. "Mr. Hargrove on line 1. He says it's urgent." Lawrence never called, just to chat. I picked up. "Riley, your father has stage 4 small cell lung cancer. Diagnosis was confirmed last week at University of Cincinnati Medical Center. No insurance. Estimated cost for even palliative chemo exceeds 7 figures. Cheryl left him 24 months ago. She drained the last checking account and disappeared. Michaela is 19 heavy methamphetamine user currently couch surfing in Dayton. All 3 of them are downstairs in the lobby right now asking to see you." I set the phone down without answering and walked to the window. Below on the sidewalk, Patrick leaned against the brick wall, coughing into a handkerchief spotted with blood. He looked 70 instead of 53, face-sunken Bengals cap pulled low. Cheryl was gone. Lawrence was right. Only Patrick and Michaela remained. My half-sister had track marks climbing both arms and twitched like someone had wired her nervous system to a car battery. She kept glancing at the door like she expected cops to drag her out. Security had already told them we don't take walk-ins over 21, but they refused to leave. A small crowd of our residents watched from the steps, curious. Levi appeared beside me. "You want me to have them removed?" I watched Patrick slide down the wall until he sat on the concrete head in his hands. Michaela paced, lighting one cigarette off the last, muttering loud enough for the whole block to hear that this was her sister's fault. Something cold and final settled in my stomach. "No," I said. "Let them in." Conference room. 10 minutes. Levi raised an eyebrow but didn't argue. He knew what this meant. I went downstairs myself and opened the lobby door. Patrick looked up, eyes red. "Riley. Baby. Please." Michaela sneered. "Look at you acting all high and mighty in your little charity palace." I didn't answer. I just turned and walked to the elevator. They followed like stray dogs that weren't sure if the next kick or scrap was coming. In the conference room, I took the head seat. Levi stood behind me. Lawrence joined via speakerphone. Patrick started crying before the door even closed. Michaela stayed standing, arms crossed, rocking on her heels. I slid 3 folders across the table. Inside, the first printouts from the Ohio Department of Medicaid showing Patrick qualified for emergency coverage and a list of hospice providers that take uninsurables. Second folder, addresses and phone numbers of every adult inpatient rehab in the tri-state that still had Medicaid beds. Third folder, application paperwork for the Ohio Benefit Bank, and 2 domestic violence shelters that accepted women with addiction histories. I spoke for the first time. Beatrice's home serves minors only. That is in the trust, and it will never change. You are all adults. These are the public and nonprofit resources available to adults in this state. That is everything we can legally or ethically provide. Patrick sobbed harder. You're my daughter. I said. On my 16th birthday, you told me I wasn't anymore. Nothing has changed the paperwork on that. Michaela slammed her fist on the table. You owe us, after everything we. Levi stepped forward half a step. She shut up. I stood. Security will escort you out. Do not come back. Patrick tried to grab my hand as he passed. I pulled away. The door closed behind them. I looked at the whiteboard on the wall. 79 names in dry erase marker, each one a kid with a permanent address now. One empty line waited. I picked up the marker. That same evening, in a rundown apartment off Reading Road, a 15-year-old girl named Destiny packed a single duffel while her mother screamed through a crack pipe that she was just like her father. Destiny texted the crisis number we keep on every city bus shelter. By midnight, she had a bed, a caseworker, and a plan. I wrote her name on the board in bold capital letters. 80. The trust unlocked at 12:01 a.m. I didn't sleep. I stood on the roof of the warehouse and watched the city lights flicker across the river, the same river Beatrice had watched for 70 years. One chapter closed for good. I let them into the glass-walled conference room on the 4th floor. Patrick shuffled in first, clutching a crumpled Kroger bag that held everything he owned now. Cheryl followed on her knees the second the door clicked shut, mascara streaking down cheeks that had once been plump with contempt. Michaela slammed the door hard enough to rattle the blinds, then stood behind them, twitching pupils blown wide. Patrick started talking before he even sat. It's in my lungs, Riley. Both lobes. They said without aggressive chemo, I've got months, maybe less. The bills? They're already over 200 grand, and I haven't even started treatment. Cheryl crawled forward and grabbed the hem of my jeans. Please. I know we did you wrong, but he's dying. You're rich now. Just write a check. One check and he lives. Michaela laughed high and brittle. Listen to Mommy beg the little princess. You think you're better than us because some dead old lady felt sorry for you. You owe us, you ungrateful bitch. I waited until the echo died. Then I didn't raise my voice. I didn't need to. I placed 3 thin manila folders in the center of the table. Patrick opened the first with shaking fingers. Inside were printouts from the Ohio Medicaid office showing he had been approved for emergency expansion coverage, retroactive to the diagnosis date, plus contact sheets for the Christ Hospital's charity care program and 2 hospice providers that accept zero-income patients. Cheryl's folder held admission packets for 3 state-funded adult residential rehab centers with open beds this week, all within 50 miles of Cincinnati. Michaela's contained the same rehab list plus applications for the Hamilton County Drug Court Diversion Program and 2 women's shelters that take active users. I leaned back. Those are the resources the state of Ohio makes available to adults in crisis. Beatrice's home is a 501c3 whose IRS filings and trust documents restrict every dollar to services for minors under 21. If I gave even 1 cent to any of you, the trust dissolves tomorrow and every kid currently in our program loses their bed. That is not negotiable. It is not personal. It is the law. Patrick's mouth opened and closed like a fish on dry land. But I'm your father. You stopped being my father the day you handed me a trash bags on my 16th birthday and told me I was old enough to survive on my own. The state of Ohio agreed with you then, and it agrees with me now. Cheryl wailed louder, banging her forehead on the table. I'll do anything, I'll sign whatever you want. There is nothing to sign, I said. There is only the door. Michaela lunged across the table, nails out. Levi caught her wrist midair and set her back in the chair like she weighed nothing. She spat at my feet. I stood. On the day you locked me out, you taught me exactly what family is worth. Today, I choose the only family I have left. The 80 kids who never got to pick who gave birth to them. You are not on that list. I walked to the door and held it open. Security appeared instantly. 2 guards in Beatrice's home polos took Patrick by the elbows. He didn't fight. Cheryl had to be half-carried, still screaming my name like a curse. Michaela flipped me off with both hands all the way to the elevator. The glass door closed. Silence rushed in like cold water. I went straight to my office, printed the final verification packet, and signed my name on the auditor's line. Case number 80, Destiny Marie Evans, age 15. Evicted by parents the night before after they sold her laptop for drug money. Intake completed at 11:47 p.m. Permanent housing secured in our Walnut Hills group home. Enrollment paperwork for Hughes STEM High School already faxed. I carried the folder to the big whiteboard myself and wrote her name in thick black marker under the other 79. The independent auditor arrived at 11:59 p.m., reviewed the file, stamped approved, and shook my hand. At 12:01 a.m., the bank notification hit my phone. $52 million, unrestricted, irrevocably mine. I didn't feel triumph. I didn't feel revenge. I felt finished. I turned off the office lights, walked the empty hallway past photos of every kid we'd pulled off the street, and took the elevator to the roof. The city was quiet. Somewhere down there, 3 people who used to share my last name were learning what rock bottom really felt like. I didn't hate them anymore. I just didn't know them. Winter arrived early that year, the kind that bites through coats and turns the Ohio River into slate. Patrick died on a Tuesday in late January at University of Cincinnati Medical Center. The hospital social worker called Lawrence because my old number was still listed as next of kin on some ancient form. He lasted 3 days after the confrontation. Medicaid covered comfort care only. The aggressive drugs that might have bought him a few more months required cash up front he didn't have. The death certificate read, metastatic small cell carcinoma and respiratory failure. No service was held. A county cremation followed 2 days later. I learned all of this from the obituary Lawrence forwarded. I did not attend. I did not send flowers. I did not cry. Cheryl lost the house in March. The foreclosure auction happened on the courthouse steps in Columbus, while she sat in her rusted Corolla across the street, engine running to keep warm. When the gavel fell, she drove south on I-71 with whatever fit in the trunk. She bounced between extended stay motels along I-75 Red Roof in Sharonville, then Super 8 in Monroe, until the credit cards maxed out. By May, her phone went dark, and her trail ended somewhere near the Kentucky line. No one I knew ever heard from her again. Michaela walked out of Talbert House halfway through the mandated 30-day program. Within weeks, she hit 3 different Kroger stores in Hamilton County in a single weekend, razor blades down her sleeve, at the Deerfield Township location, steak and laundry detergent at Fairfield Cosmetics, and cold medicine at Coleraine. Every store had upgraded cameras. Every theft was crystal clear. She was arrested coming out of the 3rd store with $412 worth of merchandise in a stolen baby stroller. The prosecutor charged her with 3 counts of felony theft. Because of 2 prior shoplifting convictions, the judge sentenced her to 20 months at the Ohio Reformatory for Women in Marysville. She is inmate Dao Chakwiyu 874 now. Her projected release date is late next year, assuming good behavior. None of them ever tried to contact me again. No letters, no collect calls from the jail, no messages through mutual acquaintances. The line that had been cut on my 16th birthday stayed cut. While they disappeared, Beatrice's home grew. We opened a 12-bed facility in Cleveland's Ohio City neighborhood in February, and a second in Dayton's Edgemont section by June. The unrestricted trust let us buy buildings outright instead of leasing, hire full-time therapists instead of contractors, and stock every pantry like it was Thanksgiving year-round. By fall, we were serving over 300 kids at any given time, with satellite offices in Toledo and Akron already under contract. In November, the Columbus Foundation and the Ohio Philanthropy Association jointly named me Young Philanthropist of the Year. The ceremony was held at the Ohio Theater downtown. I wore a simple black dress and stood under the chandelier while they read statistics. 312 minors permanently housed, 187 high school diplomas, earned 94 trade certifications, completed 0 returns to homelessness among graduates. The applause was loud, but it felt distant, like it was for the kids, not for me. Levi sat in the front row in a tux that actually fit, grinning like he'd won the lottery himself. When they called my name, he was the first one on his feet. I accepted the glass award, thanked the board, thanked Lawrence, who stood quietly in the wings, thanked every caseworker and foster parent and teacher who had ever stayed late for one of ours. Then I said the only thing that mattered. This isn't my award. It belongs to the girl who slept under the Brent Spence Bridge with a broken arm and still graduated valedictorian. It belongs to the boy who aged out of foster care at 18 and now teaches welding to the next class. It belongs to every kid who was told they were nothing and proved the world wrong. I just signed the checks. They did the work. I stepped off the stage to another standing ovation. Later in the lobby, a reporter asked if I felt vindicated. I thought about the empty chair where a father should have sat, about a mother who vanished, about a sister behind bars. No, I answered. I feel free. That night, Levi and I drove back to Cincinnati with the trophy riding shotgun like a passenger. Snow started falling somewhere past Springfield, big soft flakes that covered the highway in silence. We didn't talk much. We didn't need to. The past was buried under 6 inches of fresh white, and it was going to stay there. The gala took place at the Duke Energy Convention Center in downtown Cincinnati, the grand ballroom lit by 1,000 tiny lights that looked like captured stars. I stood on the stage in a plain midnight blue dress that cost less than most people's shoes that night. The master of ceremonies had just finished reading the citation. 543 minors, permanently housed, 211 college scholarships, funded 98% high school graduation rate among our kids. The room rose in a wave of applause. I waited until it settled, then stepped forward and took the microphone. Thank you, truly. But tonight isn't about numbers. I looked out over the sea of faces, donors in tuxedos, politicians in practiced smiles, reporters with phones, raised caseworkers who had worked 70-hour weeks for years. And in the very front row, Levi Ortiz, 20 years old, wearing the first suit he had ever owned, eyes shining. I swallowed once. 7 years ago, I was thrown out on my 16th birthday with a trash bag of clothes and $23. Tonight, I stand here because one woman I never met decided a stranger's pain could become someone else's power. But there is one more thing I need to do before this night ends. I turned to the wings. Lawrence appeared carrying a small leather folder. He handed it to me and stepped back. I opened it and held up the papers so the cameras could see. Effective this morning, the Hamilton County Probate Court has approved my petition to legally adopt Levi Ortiz as my son. He said yes. A gasp rippled through the room, then silence so complete I could hear my own heartbeat. I looked straight at Levi. Come here. He walked up the 3 steps like he was floating. When he reached me, I pulled him into the tightest hug I had given anyone in my life. The ballroom cameras flashed like lightning. I kept one arm around him and spoke into the microphone again. Blood doesn't make family. Choice does. I lost one family the day I was told I was no longer wanted. Tonight I gain one I chose, and who chose me back. Levi is my son. And every single kid we have ever helped, they're mine too. All 543 of them. I'm 23 years old, and I already have more children than most people have in a lifetime, and I am the luckiest mother alive. The applause started slow, then exploded. People stood so fast, chairs scraped and tipped. Levi's shoulders shook against mine. I felt warm tears on my neck that weren't my own. I let it wash over us for a long minute, then raised a hand. The room quieted. I used to think revenge would feel sweet. It doesn't. Freedom feels sweet. Love feels sweet. Watching a kid who once slept in a cardboard box walk across a graduation stage in a cap and gown that is the sweetest thing I have ever tasted. I looked down at Levi again. He grinned through the tears, leaned close to the microphone, and said the 6 words that finished me. "Can we go home now, Mom?" The entire ballroom lost it. Grown men in $1,000 suits wiped their eyes. Women dabbed mascara with napkins. Someone started chanting Mom, and 500 voices picked it up until the chandeliers trembled. I laughed through my own tears and nodded. Yes, baby, let's go home. We walked off the stage hand in hand while the orchestra struck up You'll Never Walk Alone. Flashbulbs popped like fireworks. Lawrence waited in the wings, eyes suspiciously bright, holding both our coats. Outside, the December air was sharp and clean. Snow had started to fall again, soft and silent, blanketing the city in forgiveness I no longer needed to give. Levi opened the passenger door of the SUV for me, then paused. "You know," he said, "for the record, I've been calling you Mom in my head for 3 years already." I pulled him down by his tie and kissed his forehead. "Good. Because I've been thinking of you as my son since the night you let me cry in that stupid private jet bathroom and didn't tell a soul." We drove back across the river with the city lights sparkling on fresh snow. The mansion on the hill was lit up like Christmas, every window glowing because the kids had insisted on waiting up. When we walked through the front door, 40 teenagers in pajamas swarmed us, screaming, "Surprise and welcome home." Mom, and we saw it on TV. Someone had strung a banner across the grand staircase, "Welcome to your forever family." I stood in the middle of that beautiful chaos coat, still on snow melting in my hair, surrounded by children who had once had nothing and now had everything, because someone finally chose them. Levi wrapped an arm around my shoulders. I looked up at him and smiled, the first completely unburdened smile of my life. This was the real inheritance. Not $52 million, 543 hearts that beat because mine refused to break. And one tall, proud young man who chose me right back. I was home.